All right, today we're going to do something a little different. We're going to become digital archaeologists. We're digging into a really fascinating piece of internet culture that all starts with this one super cryptic phrase.
So this is where it all begins. This one phrase that's been kind of floating around online, the lore of @DragonIllusion6CW. I mean, it sounds like it could be the title of some epic fantasy novel, right? But its origins are 100% digital. And trust me, the story it tells is, well, it's not what you'd expect at all.
So the big questions are, what is this lore? And who in the world is Dragon Illusion? Let's follow these digital breadcrumbs together and see if we can figure out what this whole thing is really about. Okay, let's get into the mystery of the lore. Like any good detective story, we've got to start with the clues we have, even if they're just a few fragments.
And believe it or not, this is it. This is our one and only lead, a single YouTube channel handle. The entire mystery seems to hang on this one little thing, so you know what? That's exactly where we're going to start pulling the thread.
All right, time to crack the channel's code. By really digging into the content on this channel, we can start to piece together a profile of this creator and the little world they've built around them.
Okay, clue number 1 is right there in the video titles. Look at this one. Ladybird Lou versus Dragon Illusion. That versus in the middle, it pretty much screams competition, right? It points to some kind of showdown or a direct comparison, and that tells us a ton about the style of content we're dealing with here.
So our next clue actually comes from the creator's tools. If you look around the channel, you find mentions of CapCut and Alight Motion edits. Now, if you're not familiar, those are both super popular mobile video editing apps, so this tells us we're definitely not talking about some high-budget production. We're deep in the world of user-generated content, stuff that's probably made right on a phone.
But is the content any good? Well, the community seems to think so. Here's our third clue. A playlist just called Goated Edits. And for anyone who might not know, Goated is internet slang for greatest of all time. So yeah, that tells us pretty clearly that this creator, and definitely their audience, believe these edits are absolutely top tier.
And just in case we weren't sure, here's another video title. Snipe Snap versus Ethan Harper. See, a pattern is definitely emerging. It's pretty clear that these versus-style edits are Dragon Illusion's whole thing.
Okay, so we're starting to get the format. But to really understand the culture here, we have to learn the language. There's this one specific word that just keeps popping up, and we've got to figure out what it means.
So check this out. In the transcript for that Ladybird Lou versus Dragon Illusion video, we find this phrase. Just repeat it. Heat, heat. Now, on its own, you might think, okay, what's that? It doesn't mean a whole lot. But then we look somewhere else. And boom! In the Snipe Snap versus Ethan Harper transcript, there's a similar phrase, heat up here. This is huge. It confirms this isn't just some random comment. It's a specific term, a piece of slang that has a shared meaning inside this community.
So what does heat actually mean? Well, after a little digging, it turns out heat is very specific slang in these online video editing communities. It's basically a term of high praise. It means an edit is just incredible, really well made, super impressive, intense. In other words, we've cracked their code.
All right, let's put the pieces together. We've got our clues, the versus format, the mobile editing tools, the goated reputation, and now we even understand the language, like the word heat. It's time to assemble this puzzle. So, here's our theory of Dragon Illusion, laid out step by step. Step 1, Dragon Illusion is a content creator on YouTube. Simple enough. Step 2, their whole thing is making these competitive versus-style video edits, and they're using everyday mobile apps to do it. And finally, step 3, a whole community has sprung up around this content, and they've got their own insider language, like using heat to praise the really good stuff.
And this brings us to the big reveal. The lore of Dragon Illusion? It isn't some fantasy story about a mythical dragon. The lore is the culture itself. It's the shared rules, the style, the language. It's the unspoken agreement on what makes an edit goated and why you'd call it heat. It's not a story that's told, it's a culture that's lived. It's basically living, breathing digital folklore.
You know, this one little case study actually tells us something way bigger about how culture gets made on the internet today.
I mean, just think about the difference. Traditional lore, right? That stuff was handed down through generations. It was all about grand myths and legends. But internet lore, it spreads instantly through shares and comments, and it's not built on epic poems.
It's built on memes, slang, and specific editing styles. And here's the real kicker. Traditional lore was created by a culture that already existed. This new digital lore, it actually creates the culture from the ground up.
So why does any of this matter? Why do a deep dive on one single YouTube channel? Well, because it's a perfect example of how communities now form around these shared digital things. It shows us that niche slang, words like heat, they're not just words, they're like a secret handshake, a password that makes you feel like you belong. Lore isn't some old static story anymore. It's being co-created, right now, by creators and fans together. And honestly, the most exciting part, it means pretty much anyone with a phone and a cool idea can become a modern-day folklorist, building a whole new culture from scratch.
So that's what we'll leave you with. Think about the online spaces you're in, the memes you share, the specific phrases you and your friends use. What digital lore are you a part of right now without even realizing it?